After the brutal fall of the Jedi Order, the former Grandmaster Yoda found refuge in a wild and untouched world whose surface was almost entirely covered by thick swamps, twisted roots, and perpetual fog. The atmosphere was suffocating for any outsider, but in that organic chaos pulsed a living, primitive, almost ancestral force. There, among vines and creatures that defied classification, Yoda cast aside the title he had carried for centuries and surrendered to solitude. His days passed in silence, feeding on what the planet offered, living among the shadows and meditating under the constant rain that washed away time and guilt. Exile was not just an escape, it was penance and learning. Far from the echoes of war and the march of the Empire, Yoda gave himself over to contemplation, allowing himself to be enveloped by the Force as never before. With no voices around him, no political decisions to make, no advice to give, he rediscovered the essence of what it meant to be a Jedi. But in recent cycles, something different began to creep into the margins of his perception. The Force whispered in a strange, fragmented way, as if its flow were contorting. It wasn't just the future that was unsettled, it was multiple times colliding, overlapping in his mind like tides coming from opposite directions. A call echoed in the depths, coming from beyond the timeline. The visions began as flashes during sleep, but soon became conscious storms. He saw himself as a child, around 50 years old, having adventures and being protected by a Mandalorian. He saw himself accepting a place on the Jedi Council, debating with Ki-Adi-Mundi and Plo Koon, training generations of warriors of light alongside Mace Windu. He saw himself training young people like Dooku, Kenobi, and even an unknown Padawan knight. But the flow of time darkened, and he was forced to watch the rise of Darth Sidious, the corruption of Anakin, the silent cry of Padme, the devastating loneliness of Luke on Ahch-To. Among the images, a thread of hope emerged. With a heavy heart and an alert mind, Yoda understood that this was not a vision, it was a call. The Force did not mourn. It pointed. And it pointed to a window that was not yet closed. For the first time since leaving the galaxy behind, Yoda decided to act. Guided by the mysterious call, he abandoned his swampy home, lifted his small hidden ship from the waters, and departed in silence. He crossed forgotten sectors and faded stars until he felt a familiar vibration on Lothal, a seemingly unimportant planet where the very fabric of time seemed to ripple. As he landed, he realized that destiny had guided him to a point of convergence. The place he sought was not on any map, nor in any memory. Following the whispers of the Force, he entered the mountain ranges of Lothal, hidden by ancient legends of lost temples. He found entrances covered in moss and runes from time immemorial, protected by invisible guardians who recognized him only by the purity of his presence. As he crossed the stone gates, Yoda felt the energy change. There, time seemed to stand still. The air was denser, and the walls whispered forgotten memories. He stood before an ancient temple, one of the rare places where the galaxy touched the threshold of eternity. Inside the temple, the corridors reverberated with footsteps that did not belong to the present. Ancient symbols covered the walls, glowing as he passed. It was as if the temple was alive, awakening to welcome him. In the central hall, a ring of energy floated above the floor, and within it, what only legendary masters knew by name, the world between worlds. A space where time was not a line, but a sea of possibilities. Doors spun in orbit, floating in the void, each pulsing with a memory, a destiny, a fork in the road. As he crossed the threshold, Yoda was enveloped by a total absence of gravity, as the Force welcomed him like a lost sun. The portals moved slowly, revealing striking scenes. Palpatine's coronation as Supreme Chancellor, blood spilling on Mustafar, Luke facing Vader on Bespin, Leia crying alone after the destruction of Alderaan. But amid the horrors, alternate windows flashed. Anakin walking away from Sidious, Padme surviving, the Jedi Order resisting. The Force had not brought him there to observe, it had brought him there to decide. Yoda did not hesitate. He knew the risks, the words spoken by older masters who had touched destinies that did not belong to them. But he also knew that the fall of the galaxy was too recent to become the past. This was a chance, and to refuse it would be to accept pain as immutable. With a trembling hand, he touched one of the portals. The window revealed Coruscant, still vibrant, still full of life, just before the storm that would destroy everything. One last breath of the Republic. One chance to prevent hope from rotting away. Without further hesitation, he stepped through. The leap through time was silent, like a dive into deep water. When he emerged, he was already in the heart of the city planet, surrounded by hurried crowds and buildings that were not yet covered in fear. He hid under an ancient cloak, disguising his presence in the Force, until he became almost invisible. He walked through the alleys, markets, and hallways of the galactic capital, recognizing smells, sounds, and sensations he thought he had left behind since the Sith's revenge. The peace there was illusory, sustained by a nascent empire disguised as freedom. But there was a light he needed to find, the chosen one. Anakin Skywalker walked through the corridors of the Jedi Temple, his eyes alert but troubled. He carried the weight of unspoken doubts and suffocating expectations. He had just received a mission that tore him apart, to spy on the Chancellor himself for the Jedi Council. Yoda saw him from afar, sensing the turmoil in his spirit, the fire burning beneath the surface. But he did not reveal himself, not yet. The time was not right for him to meet him again, not at that moment. He needed to observe. For days, Yoda followed the young knight in silence, always hidden, using his mastery to divert the attention of any master or sentry. In forgotten meditation temples, in the shadows of the central columns, he watched Anakin train, talk to Padawans, debate with Obi-Wan. He also saw the moments of loneliness and nightmares, when Anakin's gaze was lost in the void, dominated by fears that grew day after day. The Grand Master sought more than signs. He wanted to understand the exact point where everything began to fall apart. And when he saw Anakin walking alone, ready to leave, Yoda took a step forward. His robe covered his face, but his presence was unmistakable to those who felt the Force. Anakin stopped suddenly and took a step back, surprised by Yoda's sudden appearance in the silent hall of the Jedi Temple. Before a word was spoken, the old master raised a claw in a sign of peace. "Young Skywalker, calm you must be. Talk we must, you and I." Still stunned, Anakin noticed something different about Yoda. His posture was heavier, his gaze deeper. It was the same master he knew, but he wasn't the same. "Master, I saw you earlier today, but now, there's something strange about you." Yoda slowly lowered his hood and replied with grave serenity. "From a time long ago I came. A dark future, prevent we must." Anakin frowned. "Future? Are you saying that you came from the future?" Yoda nodded silently. Anakin's distrust was inevitable, but the sincerity in the old master's tone broke his initial resistance. The master told him about the mission the Force had given him, and the Jedi Knight told him about his recurring dreams of Padme's death, the tightness he felt in his chest, the fear of losing everything once again. He spoke of his conflicts with the Jedi Council, of the feeling of being used as a pawn in a game of greater forces, and of the only one who seemed to understand him, Chancellor Palpatine. "He has always been on my side. He always believed in me, even when the Jedi doubted me." Yoda listened in silence. Then, with regret in his voice, he said what needed to be said. "A Sith he is. From the beginning he manipulated you. Chosen you are, but by him you were molded." Anakin staggered. The ground seemed to recede from under his feet. For long minutes, Anakin stood silent, his eyes lost on some distant point in the galaxy. Everything seemed to collapse within him. His confidence, his loyalty, his anger. "If that's true," he murmured, "then I'm more lost than I've ever been." Yoda placed his hand on his shoulder. "Lost you are not. Choose, you still can. Reveal himself, the Sith will. Alone with him you will be. Prepared you must be." With these words, the old master slowly walked away, leaving Anakin immersed in thoughts and anguish that burned more than any physical wound. That same night, Anakin sought out Padme. He found her sitting in the inner gardens of the Senate, under the pale light of Coruscant. Without hesitation, he told her everything, from the appearance of Yoda from the future to the visions of his death, the dark secret hidden beneath Palpatine's cloak. Padme did not doubt him. She simply placed her hand on his face and said, "You have always been a good man, Anakin. But fear does terrible things to the heart." With the strength of their love, she helped him make his decision. For the first time in a long time, Anakin felt clarity. He would choose the light. He would remain with the Republic. The next day, the reunion with the Chancellor took place in the private chambers of the Executive Tower. Palpatine awaited him with a serene smile, like a father who knew his son would return home. But Anakin's gaze was hard. "Sir, I need to know the truth." Palpatine parted his lips. "About what, my boy?" Anakin took a deep breath. "You're a Sith, aren't you? You've been behind everything from the beginning." There was a moment of silence. Then Palpatine let the pretense fall away. "And if I am? Didn't I give you power? Didn't I trust you when no one else did?" The game was over. A tear escaped from Anakin's eyes. The temptation was great. Palpatine promised unimaginable powers, the key to saving Padme, and an end to the visions, so he was not afraid to confess. But Anakin remembered Padme's words, Yoda's presence, the darkness he had felt before. "You're trapped, Chancellor." His voice cut through the air like a lightsaber. He made a sign with his hand. At that moment, Yoda from the future appeared at his side, emerging from the shadows like an eternal presence. Palpatine screamed in rage, "Damned traitor!" His red lightsaber activated with a deadly crack, ready to attack. Then the sound of turbines roared violently from outside, and the windows shattered. Jedi Masters and Knights fell into the hall like comets of light. Mace Windu was the first to touch the floor, his purple lightsaber already activated. Behind him, Obi-Wan, Yoda of that time, and at least 10 knights stormed into the room. Palpatine lunged at them all with a fury never before seen, Force lightning shooting from his hands, cutting through everything around him. But the Jedi were prepared. The circle closed in. Windu dueled face-to-face with Sidious, their blows forming a spectacle of light and thunder. Obi-Wan and Yoda attacked from the flanks, while Yoda from the past guided the younger ones in defense. The Yoda from the future, with a calm gaze and precise movements, channeled the Force like a relentless river. Palpatine was skilled, lethal, and at times seemed unstoppable. But the Jedi's unity was absolute. Lightning bolts clashed against lightsabers, screams echoed, until the inevitable happened. Mace Windu disarmed Palpatine with a well-aimed blow, and the Yoda of the present, in an almost poetic movement, finished him off with a clean cut. The Sith's body fell without glory, his mask of power finally broken. A heavy silence filled the room, interrupted only by the gasping breaths of the survivors. Anakin stood in the center, staring at his hands, as if rediscovering who he was. The Yoda of the future approached, and one by one, the Jedi Masters greeted him with reverence. He did not respond with words, only with a faint smile. He knew his journey was complete. Time had been rewritten. Anakin approached, his eyes still teary. "If it weren't for you, I would have lost everything." The little master placed his hand on his arm. "Difficult the path is, but hope, there always is." At that moment, the Yoda of the present walked up to the one from the future and gently touched his hand. The two exchanged a look that contained centuries. Then the Yoda of the future began to glow. The light of the Force enveloped him like a golden mist. Without pain, without haste, he dissolved in peace, disappearing before everyone's eyes. And thanks to his adventure, the galaxy will be able to survive again.